Microphone check 212. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to It's the Bearded Man podcast with your favorite, the world's favorite bearded man, Bob Bay. Another beautiful sunny day in LA. We have the beautiful man, myth, legend, Dalton Misner in the house, baby. What's up?
Thanks for having me, dude. It's great to be here.
How we doing?
Doing well. Yeah.
Dude, so you watched we did like a Q&A type podcast on the old show, Purpose in the Youth. And that was, I believe, tell me if I'm wrong, you had posted on your Instagram story like 10 questions that people wanted to ask you. And we did like a very just like podcast style answering Q&A. But you watched it last night.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
How was that?
Interesting. Well, it was interesting because I noticed that I've grown a lot, but I also noticed that you've grown a lot too. And I think just it was cool because I could really tell where we were in life at that moment. And now we've, maintained a good friendship for, I guess that was a year ago.
Crazy.
Yeah. And so
that had been over a year. That was when you moved, you were living at the Content Crib for that month.
True. So that was like a year and a half ago. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So that would have been June of 2019.
2019. Yeah.
Wow.
It was cool though. I mean, it was really cool. It was also interesting to see how I answered some of the questions and like just where my head was at that point, and kind of to reflect and then understand like why I thought that way at that time. And then maybe why I think differently about a certain question now.
Yeah.
But it actually got me really excited to talk today because I think, there's just a lot of things that I talked about then that my mind has changed a bit about them, or I've experienced this and that now has led me to this conclusion about whatever topic it might be. So
yeah, this was something I actually wanted to dive into today because I'm very curious. But how important do you think living at the Content Crib for that 1 month was that for you in making the leap to LA? Because I feel like it, at least from me personally and what I saw from you, was like, timing couldn't have been better. Dylan had left for a month. We had an open bedroom for a month. You step in, you pretty much lived there, took the opportunity, came out from the Midwest, had nothing really lined up except like some potential leads of like people you could work with. And I feel like that gave you 30 days, hit the ground running. You were taking Ubers from the Valley all the way to the West Side every single day. I was still driving Uber full time, but I didn't have to worry about you because you were just like, yo, I'm going to do this today. I'm going here tomorrow, hustling and grinding. But I feel like that 30 days, you just capitalized and you were a yes man to every opportunity. And by the time you left LA, I feel like you had just grown within like your mindset and the people you had connected with. And I'm curious, do you think that 30 days gave you the confidence to finally say, gotta move to LA?
Absolutely. Yeah. I would say that was the turning point for me. And it also helped, like, we joke about this, but like getting up at 6 every day with you, going to the gym. Like,
what did you call it? The boot camp?
Yeah. The Bearded Man boot camp.
I love that.
Yeah. But like I came back home and my parents were like, you put on like 5 pounds of muscle. Like, yeah.
They're like, what the hell is he feeding you out there? What did you do?
But it was absolutely pivotal. And I was scared because I didn't have a lot of money at the time at all. So I had spent, I think the number was $900 to stay there for the month. Mm-hmm. And I remember that I was nervous because I was like, even if this goes well, I feel like if I spend this now, I'm not going to have enough to move out to LA. Flawed logic, but after this month, I had ended up making all of that back just by doing a bunch of projects out here. And then I was like, I felt like I had enough connections. It was just, I guess it was like one of those things where it just showed me I could do it. And it didn't seem as scary anymore to like move out here and go for it. So.
Yeah. Well, I think you have to, especially with like a move like that to a major city coming from the Midwest, small town, to then this major city of LA. It's like, holy shit, I'm about to take the leap. I'm about to go to this crazy big city. Yeah. And I always tell people that I wouldn't have had the confidence to move out here had I not came out here multiple times. Even for the 1 year leading up to making the leap from Boston to LA, I had visited LA twice. And even before that, I had visited LA 5 times. So it's like each time I came here, I was like, this is the place I need to be. It wasn't so unfamiliar, and it kind of gives you a little taste of what this place is and what it has to offer. And so similarly for you, it's like you got to see what it really had to offer of like, especially when you come out here a lot of people come out here for like a week, they do their business and they leave. It's enough time to get a lot done, but to live it and be like, oh, I have 30 days.
Yeah.
You're not rushed. You're not feeling like there's a fire under your ass. Like flights in 5 days, 4 days, 3 days. You're just going with the flow and you can, work around other people's schedules.
Exactly. When you moved out here, how was the first like month, 2 months? Did you feel like you had made a mistake or
there was never an ounce of regret because I feel like because I had made those trips coming out here, I knew this was the place I needed to be. And within those trips, for instance, similarly, I'd come out here, I had one podcast line. I'll never forget this. I came out here in January of 2017 with Dylan. Dylan came out here to shoot music videos. I came out here to podcast. I had one podcast locked in. I flew back to LA with 6.
Wild.
Within a week. And I was just like, okay. So there's something to be said about not having a game plan and just throwing yourself into the environment and just trusting that you're going to meet the right people or they're going to connect you to the right people. And there was just one guy named Noah Sedone who he's now the day-to-day. He's like almost like a day-to-day manager for Bozzy. Mm-hmm. And he came out here and he just alley-ooped me everybody. He was part of the podcast. I did a podcast with him and he's like, oh, you got to talk to this person. You got to talk to this person. So he then just like was helping me connect the dots. And so he was very helpful in that sense. But there was never I feel very fortunate, but I think it was because I made those leaps out here and kept, trying the city out and convinced myself and visualizing I need to be in LA. I want to live here. Then when I finally got here, there was no questions asked. Dude, within 10 days of moving into Content Crib 1.0, 10 days later, I was already fully running. I was driving streets of Uber. I had a California license, California, plates on my car. I had locked in a podcast guest by the name of Gibson Hazard. He came back on the podcast. Wow. And it then was just like full steam ahead. So there was never an ounce of like, did I make the right move or not? And I also give that credit to moving out here with my best friend. So having the comfort of somebody that I grew up with. And then also knowing Steve, one of his buddies from college that I had met, wasn't the greatest of friends with, but just so many things lined up and all the stars aligned that it made sense. Because there were 2 other times in my life I thought I was going to move out here and I didn't. And so the third time was truly the charm. They talk about have patience and, wait for the timing to be right. And when that third time came, it was like, there's no questions asked. This was the moment. I had to do it.
That's great. Yeah, I felt the same way when I landed here. Because similar to you, I moved out here with like my best friend from home.
Yeah. Which was like, so you came out here in June of 2019, and then you moved out here officially 2 months later, August.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think a little different from you though. Since I was freelancing and trying, I didn't have a guaranteed paycheck. I guess so. I definitely, I think in the first 2 months felt way more of the not regret, but questioning, is this the right move? Will I be able to pay for my apartment next month? I moved away from, I had a girlfriend at the time back home, moved away from all my family. And it also was different because it was my first apartment ever. So I felt, just between like living on my own for the first time, I definitely struggled with that more. But yeah, like a year and a half almost later, I feel like this is where I belong for sure. So.
I also give you props too, because for a lot of people, I think when they move to major cities and also to LA, I have another friend of mine that went through a very similar struggle. It's like you moved to LA and then it became just a bunch of headaches of like, I remember talking to you, you're moving into this first spot in Koreatown and there's, homeless people living inside of like the lobby. Yeah. The Wi-Fi wasn't even working. You guys are hitting up your landlord. Like essentially it sounded like this was a brand new building and everything was beautiful, but they started leasing before they were even ready to actually have people moving in. So it's like, I give you props too, because just that mental energy of like, you're here to try to focus on your career and figure out the city. And you're trying to put out all these fires regarding to like the safe haven, the place that you're going to live. That's going to be the place where when you need to be alone, this is going to be your safe haven. You didn't even have that.
Yeah.
And I can't even imagine like what that must have the energy of having to deal with that at the same time of trying to figure your shit out within LA was not easy to do.
Yeah. That it's like, I think, that goes back to like the hierarchy of needs. And I think about that a lot, where in that moment I was just trying to fulfill the bare minimum of having food, shelter, water, like all of those things. And it's hard to focus on anything past that as far as being creative or your career, whatever that is, if you are still, just trying to meet the bare minimum. So I think that was where I struggled too. So every day I had all these things going on where I was just trying to survive out here and like not have my place broken into, all these things. And I struggled to really let myself go, creatively. And yeah, so that took time, but I got out of that. So yeah, the first 3 months though, I didn't have any internet at my apartment.
That's unreal.
Yeah.
You were going to a Starbucks, dude.
Yeah.
Like you were going to a local Starbucks to freaking upload projects that you're working on. I'm curious because like I said, I feel very fortunate because I moved out here, with Dylan, and then obviously I had known Steve, but Dylan was somebody that I had grown up with, best friend. We grew up 2 blocks over. We have always been, we balance each other out. We're like polar opposites, but also very much the same mindset wise, goal wise, and drivenness, but we're also very different, which I think balances us out. How was it moving out with somebody that you had grown up with, that you were close with, to, it's one thing to be best friends with somebody or to be good friends with somebody, but you don't really know somebody until you like live with them. So was there a struggle at first? Was there like trying to learn that process with your roommate? Yeah,
there was a bit of that. I think it was good, like having a friend that was like a best friend from home. It did feel comforting because we kind of both went through this at the same time. We were able to kind of lean on each other in these moments where life was tough, and we kind of went through it together, which was nice. But yeah, we both had the same thing. Like I said, we both were struggling to even think about work whenever we were just like, dude, our apartment, this situation is insane. I don't feel very safe. And I think, he ended up moving home a few months ago, but he kind of knew as soon as we got there that LA just wasn't for him. And, that was completely fine. So I think there was a little bit of that going too. Like I really wanted to whatever, make it means, but I wanted to make it in LA. And I think for him, it just didn't really align with like what he thought his purpose was, what his goals were. And so that was definitely a shock when we got here, because we both kind of had this idea that we were going to just like crush it out here, just go, balls to the wall and see what we can do. And so that was challenging a little bit, I think, when we had conversations about that, where he was aware that this just wasn't necessarily for him and he wasn't very happy there. And I was the opposite. I was, definitely struggling with certain things, but also thriving, the most I ever had. So I guess more than anything, it was just a little shocking. And then we naturally, we grew apart just a little bit.
Yeah. Which is totally fine.
Totally fine.
Yeah.
I mean, he got to come to a place, and it helped, kind of, now he's like living with his girlfriend, and they're super happy. They're in a place that they want to be, the city they want to be. And I think that LA helped him figure that out. So that's completely fine.
You got to I respect people that take that leap and actually throw yourself into the environment and try something.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that have these desires and wants to live somewhere or to do something they really want to do and will never actually step up to the plate and do it. So it's like, who am I to say that LA is supposed to be the most beautiful city that everyone wants to live? That's not the case. Yeah. But to take that leap and to actually throw yourself out there, try it out, go, this isn't meant for me, and to move on. To me, that is like that is peace of mind for the rest of my life, to go, I at least tried it. I at least checked it off the box. Maybe the timing wasn't right. Maybe in 5 years I'll end up back there, but at least I tried something that I was interested in. It wasn't what I thought it was, and then I moved on.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was, as like his friend, that was all I asked. I was like, you came out, you tried it, you did it, and you figured out it wasn't for you. And I'm also not the biggest advocate for LA. I mean, I think it's a beautiful place. It has amazing parts. I also think it has a bunch of horrible side effects. Yeah. And so I think that's important to understand too, that we were both in the same boat as far as not being too stoked about how LA was making us feel.
Yeah.
But on the same note, I knew this is the place I had to be.
Yeah.
So,
well, let's dig into that, because I definitely want to touch that today. I do agree with you on that. I've been out in LA for 3 years, and I can see how this city can, outside looking in, everyone's like, gotta move to LA, the glitz and the glamour, but it's a different thing when you actually live here. And I think I actually feel fortunate that I lived out in the Valley because it gave me that space from LA and to figure my own shit and my own peace of mind. So I could come into like the West Hollywood scene, the LA scene, the freaking Venice scene. I could be in it, and then I could get out and like slow down and think and be like, who am I? What am my direction? I'm not being like pulled in. But the last year from what we have, I mean, not the last year, but definitely like the last 6 months has been this learning experience for you.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of having to reassess your goals and, some mental conversations and self-growth and realizations about externally what makes you happy and there's a lot to unpack within that. So I'm curious as to how living in LA versus not living in here, now that you have been here, how has that changed you? Or like what did you mean by that when you kind of like said, living here, it can affect somebody or whatnot. But then also too, this past like 6 months, you're definitely coming out of a self-growth tunnel, I guess you could say. What has that whole experience and transition been like?
Yeah, I'll try to make it as quick as I can.
No. Take your time, dude. That's the point of these podcasts. We got nothing but time, baby.
Yeah, all right. So similar to everyone else, whenever the pandemic started and we were all put in lockdown, I immediately, to put it blunt, just felt like shit. I remember the day that they announced that international travel was canceled and they were closing the borders. I remember that I think it was the next day or like 2 days later, I was supposed to be going to Europe to go on tour. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of, I guess, that was the first huge bummer for me. And I was like, this is real, and I felt that personally in my own life, the impact of that. So what the next kind of, I would say 4 months looked like is my roommate ended up going home. Very smart. He went home because he was like, there's nothing happening here. We were on full lockdown, couldn't do anything. So he went home, spent a few months with family, and I chose to stay in LA because there was still some work happening. This was a very confusing time. People weren't sure how long this was going to last. So I stayed and I kept working in hopes that this would just go away and I could pick back up in a couple months. So I was in LA for, I think, 3 months all alone. And this was at the time where like no one, all restaurants were closed. No one was meeting up, doing anything. So I really, really didn't see any of my friends for, I would say probably a solid 2 months. I was completely alone. And in those 2 months, work slowed down. I was spending way more time with just myself. I had a lot of free time and I was slowly starting to feel all these feelings kind of rise up from deep within me that I didn't recognize were there before. And a lot of them were very negative feelings. And I think where they came from now looking back is I lived life for the past 2 years at, 500 miles an hour. I was just going, and taking care of my mind and checking in with my emotions was last on the list for the last 2 years. And I don't know, I think all those just kind of started to rise up and I had all the time in the world to sit there and think about it and feel those feelings. So, yeah, kind of just that was kind of whenever the downward trajectory started for me. I let those emotions and feelings, start eating me alive. Little things too, like thinking about past relationships or even like I started thinking, the biggest one for me was thinking like, I had sacrificed everything, including relationships with my family, friends, my girlfriend, for work in, LA. And now that was all stripped away and I didn't have, a concert to go shoot and distract me. I didn't have a tour to be on and distract me. I didn't have all these things that were distracting me anymore. I started to question, was it worth it? Now that I felt like I had all these, not burnt bridges, but just bridges that needed some care, in relationships. And that's where a lot of the negative feelings came from, I think. I just started to have some regrets about all the sacrifices I'd made for this. So I would say kind of to like brush over the next okay, let's say up until about 2 months ago, just continued to get worse and worse mentally. And I was really struggling. I'm a super happy, positive person, never had any mental health issues before. So I was very confused and embarrassed to admit it to my family, any friends, and I tried to just deal with it on my own. And then 2 months ago, I was at my rock bottom. I don't think I've ever been at a rock bottom like that before. Very, very depressed, waking up every day with a racing heartbeat because I was super anxious for no reason at all. Had an anxiety attack, which was completely caught me off guard. Never knew what those were, what that looked like. And so 2 months ago, I decided I was going to, I had 2 months ago, I moved. So I moved from Burbank to the west side and moved in, and I was like, all right, I'm going to spend 1 week here and then drive back home and spend time with family. And I didn't have any timeline in mind. I was just going to go and stay there as long as I needed to get better. Because at the time, money didn't matter. My career didn't matter. Because I was like, as morbid as this sounds, I just genuinely didn't see a way. I didn't see a light at the end of the tunnel at that point. So I was like, this is by far the most important thing to figure out for me right now. Because I can't have a career. I can't have money. I can't, do any of these things if I can't wake up in the morning, So I went home. I drove home all by myself. Took a 3-day trip. That was really good for me mentally. It's a beautiful drive. Spent a lot of time alone, just reflecting and thinking. And then I ended up spending 2 months at home. And I kind of cut work off for those 2 months. Went and got professional help. Went and talked to every adult figure in my life that I looked up to as a role model. And it took all 2 of those months. I would say up until about a week before I ended up coming back to LA. I came back to LA at the very end of October. Up until that point, I was still severely depressed, and it was actually getting to a point where I'm sure you would kind of react the same way, where it was starting to kind of make me mad and annoy me a bit, because I was like, I don't know what's wrong. Why am I this way? I don't know what's wrong with me. I have a great life. I have a great family. I have a great career. And so, yeah, anyway, long story short, I did get help. And that was a turning point for me big time. I was able to get to a place where I could think clearly again and rationally. That was the big thing, because now looking back, I noticed in this span of 6 months where I was just struggling mentally a ton, I think I would say 90% of the thoughts in my head were negative, but they were also lies, and none of that was true. You know what I mean? So once I got to a point where I could think clearly, rationally, and say to myself, this is not true, or this is true, that's whenever the road to recovery started for me. And it's been about a month since I feel like I've kind of been on this recovery road, and I think I told you this the other day, but I feel the best I've felt in as long as I can remember, probably 10 years, really. Wow. Feels so good. But yeah, I definitely had a little bit of an identity crisis, is what I would say. As far as this pandemic forced me to separate my self-worth from my career, because before I would base, my self-worth on the tour that I was on, or the artist that I got to work with, or all of these jobs. I thought that kind of validated me and showed people how worthy I was. And so when that all got stripped away, I spent the last 6 months figuring out who is Dalton. I guess I wanted to develop a relationship with myself that was based on who I am, not what I do. And so, and now we're here, and I think that's why I feel so happy right now, though, is because I feel like I can meet someone new today and develop a relationship with them that's based on who I am, without ever mentioning what I do or using that as kind of a crutch to validate, who I am. So that's where we're at now. And obviously still, I think it's a daily battle. Like, I think once this is just, at least for me personally, I feel that once I understood that what the feeling of depression truly feels like, I think I understand now that this is going to be something I'll probably have to make a conscious effort to battle every day. And most days are good. It doesn't necessarily mean my days are bad. It just means that I have to be conscious and make sure that I'm setting my day up in a way that is going to benefit me, not hurt me and possibly drag me down a similar path again. So
this is beautiful.
Thanks.
There's a lot to unpack. There's a lot. So the pandemic causing you the stillness is really important. And I think that's probably what's happening for a lot of people. And it happened for me where I kind of had this identity crisis of like finally having time to myself and thinking like, wow, I was just podcasting for 3.5 years and now I don't do that anymore. Like, how did I just let that just fall through me, you know? And it made sense. I had a great opportunity with Liquid IV. I took the job. It got me out of Ubering. It provided so much good for myself. But then it became that moment of like, I'm by myself. I have more time to myself. Started golfing, playing video games. Like, this isn't passion though. This isn't like fulfilling. And so that's how I get into the podcast game.
Yep.
Or I get back into it. But I think the stillness is really key. And I think what you're saying is that you have learned, and something that I even in the last 2 months, I'm getting so much fucking sharper with it, and it gets me so fired up, is you're learning to become an observer of your thoughts, and you're separating yourself from the negative mental chatter, these worst case scenarios that we just are creatively whiteboarding in our lives, in our head all day long about like, this person said they don't want to grab coffee with me, so let me just whiteboard all the reasons why they don't. Maybe I'm not attractive. Maybe they just don't want to do business with me. Maybe it's because blah 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 blah. And then it's like this mental roller coaster. The dominoes are rolling. The day's shot. We're shot. Yep. We're so fed up, and our day's gone. And then it becomes like it carries through for the week, and then it becomes this constant thing every single day that we are just mentally not where we need to be. And it sounds like, I don't know if it's because of reading, I don't know if you've been getting into meditation, but you are learning to become an observer of your thoughts, and you're separating yourself from the thoughts that roll in your mind, and you're not attaching yourself. You're letting it come in and you're letting it go out, whether it's the good or the bad. The good stuff, like everything's going good in my life. You're not getting attached to it. You're not letting that ride you 10,000 feet in the air, because once those balloons pop, you're back low and now you feel like shit again. You are just free flowing, allowing these emotions and thoughts and ideas that come across your mind, and you're just being at ease with them, and you're not attaching yourself to it.
Exactly. But
But a lot of that is from deep work. It's from being alone. It's from self-reflecting. It's thinking about all these leaps that you've had to make to get to where you are today. Whether it was, we haven't really touched on it, but like the fact that you dropped out of college, I think after your freshman year, to
first semester
to pursue this career is phenomenal. That is to do that when everyone around you is doing that one path. You're taking such a leap to go, I'm actually out. I'm going to go create my own lane. And that's not easy to do. Like, I can only speak from my own experience, my own perspective. Me graduating college and everybody that I graduated with going and getting a career, and I didn't apply to one job and went this own path, that felt like I was the rebel. But even in that moment in time, when you're deciding to leave college early, you're the rebel for doing that. So to reflect and to think about that, and I know you've had some challenging moments with some family history for health stuff, a past girlfriend. These are all decisions and choices that you had to make. And so then I get it. You get to this moment where all that's ripped out from underneath you, and you're questioning, like, did I make the right decision? If I hadn't done this, I would be back home with the family, with the girl. Maybe I'd still be in school, whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, that's the past. Yep. There's literally no benefit of you self-analyzing and thinking what you could have done or what you should have done. If you want to sit and reflect and think about the decision making and think about, wait, how did I make that decision? Was it a rational decision? Did I weigh the pros and cons? Oh, maybe I should have done a little bit more pros and cons. Let me add this to my toolkit for the next time I make a big life decision, but not in the sense from that pessimistic lens of like, oh fuck, I shouldn't have done that, or then you're starting to be your own big critic of like, why did I do that? But to take that leap to really to invest in yourself. To decide my happiness and my ideas are my number one priority versus what other people think of me or what other people want from me. That takes a lot to do, and I respect it. And I have so much respect for you because you jumped ship so much earlier than I had. You were 19 at the time, dropping out of college to go create this path. I'd started doing this at 22. Once again, I'm only adding my own 2 cents because I can only speak from my own experience, but all that to say is that you're coming out of a tunnel, which is incredible, but to be able to like speak on it and to share it and to and not be afraid to be judged, it's empowering for other people because there are other people that are going through their own things, and I don't promote it heavily enough because I think sometimes it can be misread of like mental health, like. We need to talk about it more, and it's like it can come off as wrong as like people trying to take advantage of what that actually means, but it is a very serious topic because you don't know what other people are going through in their own head. So it's even like when I see stuff on Instagram, somebody's flashing like the car they got, the clothes, the restaurant they're at. I want to chime in and say, but how do you feel inside? Mm-hmm. What are your day-to-day thoughts looking like? And you even said it too. It's like it's a daily challenge. It's forever. Yeah. For the rest of your life, it is always going to be a challenge, a 24-hour battle. Mm-hmm. Every single day, you have to wake up. You have to wire your brain to go, I'm gonna kick ass today. Whatever happened yesterday, whether it was good or bad, that was the past. Today, I got 24 hours ahead of me. How am I going to do that? You're going to do that by setting the bar right. You're going to win your morning. You're going to win the day. You're going to freaking get in those couple things that you need to do in the morning to jumpstart your day, going back to the Bearded Man boot camp, 6 a.m., and it carries momentum through the rest of the day. But it's really awesome to hear that you feel like you are coming out of some tough months, because we had a couple conversations and I could hear it and I could tell you were still trying to figure it out. But even then, I knew, I was like, he's going to be fine. I also recognize like the last thing that somebody like this needs is everybody hounding him. It's good to check in on friends. You need to check in on people. But at the same time, I also understand like at some point you have to allow this person just to be by themselves, to have that alone time, to lean into it and go, okay, this is where I'm at. This is where I was, and this is where I want to go. And the only way you can do that is by having stillness. Yeah. And by having time to yourself.
Absolutely. It's a great point. Yeah. I love that. And I think going back to what you said, you never know what someone's going through mentally. I think something I learned recently is that that's very true. And then even further, every single person is going through something. Totally. Maybe not necessarily in that exact moment, but everyone goes through stuff. Yeah. And I think you and I are in a unique position where we get to see that even with high level people who you would usually think have it all together and don't have any issues at all. But it's cool to develop relationships with people like that, and then that when they open up and say, I'm not so different from you. Like I struggle with this and that. And I think that's also made me a much more empathetic person as well going through this, just because if someone treats me poorly one day, or I hold the door for someone and they don't say thank you, I'm able now to understand, I have no idea what is going on in that person's life. Yeah. And maybe even though they didn't say thank you for me opening the door, that was enough for them to, it was enough of a light for them that day that maybe it, is going to spark something in them that makes their day a little better. Yeah. So it's been a journey, but it's fascinating how when you learn more about yourself, I think you start to learn more about other people too. And I think it spills over into all kinds of relationships and makes you more empathetic.
Yeah. Well, the whole, what you just said about like, talking to people that are maybe at a higher level or success wise in their career, and like realizing like they are going through similar things just at a different scale or a different level. That is what I love about podcasting, is because it's opened the door to the honest and real conversations of celebrities, of people that do things at a high level that we never had access to. We never heard them in a very vulnerable, authentic conversation where it's just like straight through 2-hour podcast. And you're like, wait, this is literally, they're just you and I. It's just the same thing. They're just maybe doing something at a higher level. So I think it humanizes people. But also too, like the like opening the door and somebody doesn't say thank you. The thing that jumps to my mind when I hear that is that I can only control the controllables. So I can't control if somebody says thank you to me. Or like I heard somebody on a recent podcast the other day, they were talking about how like if somebody cuts me off, I don't get mad at them, like driving. They've made it a game where they go, that's minus 10 points for them, And just that little rewiring of making that a game of like somebody cut you off, you couldn't control that, so you go minus 10 points for them. It just changes the perspective, because like I even have a buddy of mine that I know immediately I can think of, anybody cuts him off, he's hitting the horn, he's throwing up double barrel fingers, he's freaking screaming at the person. And I'm just like, why would you allow that person to get to you like that? To control, to be bulletproof of your emotions, and to really put in the work and time to be mindful and to be aware of your thoughts and aware of like other people, like even what other people say to you. That is the strongest and the best skill that you can ever do, you can ever hone in on and get better at and sharper at, is because when you are in control of your thoughts and your emotions, you're unstoppable. Anything that anybody says to you, it goes in and it goes out. It doesn't stay around forever. It doesn't. I was just reading a book before you got here by Deepak Chopra called Meditation something. It just came out this year, and he talks about stickiness and thoughts. And if you allow these thoughts to stick to you, you're never going to get rid of them. But if whether it's good or bad and it kind of flows in and out, it doesn't stick around for so long. So yeah, everyone, I mean, it's just like, you don't know what people are going through. You can only control your emotions, and it just takes, it takes a lot of deep work to have these like honest and real conversations. And journaling has been a game changer, which I don't know if you do at all, but like I've been doing it every day since November 1st. And it is for sure going to be something that I carry on for the rest of my life, because without a doubt, a 10% lift in happiness of my day. I hate my handwriting. It's god awful. I'm not going to be able to read this shit in 10 years because it's just so that bad. But to force myself to actually write in pen every single morning 3 things I'm grateful for, 3 to 5 sentences on a positive experience that I've had in the past 24 hours, 3 things that I'm excited about, 3 priorities of mine, and 3 to 5 sentences on impact. On how do I want to impact the world? How do I want to impact people in my life, family? How do I want to impact people that I come into contact with, whether it's the person that I hold the door open for or whatever it might be. Just me reminding myself of my intentions in the beginning of the day before I even start the day.
Huge.
Sets the bar.
On
top of everything else that I do, the morning meditation, the morning run, but then before I really start work, to write it out and to like really remind myself, I cannot be stopped.
That's very funny, because that's been one of the biggest game changers for me. I need to get better at actually journaling, because I think there's something therapeutic about actually writing down with pen and paper, your thoughts. But I've been usually every night before I go to bed, I open up the notes app on my phone and I write down a to-do list for the mornings, and I close out all the tabs on my computer so that when I wake up,
clean slate.
All I have to do is open up my notes and understand exactly what I have to do that day. And it just helps set the intention. So there's no fogginess. There's no, it eliminates a lot of stress, I think, too. So
that's key.
But I'm definitely going to pick up some of those other writing points that you talked about, because I think those are also, because right now I pretty much only set the intention like work-wise. But I think reflecting, I love the one that you said about, what was it? Three sentences about a positive experience.
Positive experience in the past 24 hours.
I love that one because it's so easy to forget little things that happen, that even if it's just like you saw a buddy for 5 minutes and had a great conversation, you know,
it's forcing you to remind yourself of something that was good that happened yesterday, and that you just might have take for granted, and you kind of just don't think about it. So it's forcing you to remind yourself. But I like the writing down like maybe the to-do list for the next day, the night before. And I think what's so key about that is that the less decisions you can make in your day, the less anxiety you have, because you just know what you're supposed to do. So like Dylan and Steve, they crack jokes. They're like, living with you is like Groundhog's Day, which is a movie with Bill Murray where he literally wakes up and he lives the same life every single day. Yeah. And it is kind of funny. Like I will have the same life every Monday through Friday. It's pretty much the same routine. It's the same shit. Yeah. Gym or workout this time, doing this at that time. But what people don't realize is that when you set a schedule and you know where you're supposed to be and when, there's no anxiety about what I'm supposed to be doing. There's no anxiety about like, when do I want to do this solo podcast? Like, do I want to do today? No, it's not today, tomorrow, or Friday. It's I'm doing the solo pod every Monday at 6:30 p.m. Like clockwork. And then I lock it in, and there's nothing that's going to touch my schedule for that time zone, because that's something that means to me. So I think whether it's doing it the night before or keeping a running tab of like the to-do list and constantly shifting and reprioritizing like what actually needs to get done first, it just helps you not have to worry about all the other things that are going on, and you can just focus on those 2 to 3 priorities within that day.
100%. I love, the concept of the less decisions you have to make in a day ends up making you less stressed out, more productive, all of those things. I love that concept because I believe it was when Elon Musk went on Joe Rogan, but
never heard of him.
Yeah, I don't know who this.
Elon's right down the road, dude. Freaking 2 miles from SpaceX right now.
I know. I actually passed it like on the way here.
On the way here.
There's the Air Force base is over here too. I didn't realize.
LA's it's like an Air Force hub right over here. Yeah. Dude, within like 2 miles, we have SpaceX HQ, Tesla HQ, Los Angeles Air Force Base right here, Lakers practice facility, Clippers practice facility, Liquid IV's new HQ, and then of course the glorious content crib. So we got everything cooking up.
It's a hub over here. But anyway, I think it was on there. But Elon was talking about how he has someone in place where they tell him when to eat. They bring him his food and say, you need to eat right now for 15 minutes. Things like that, right? Like they like literally every, minute detail of his life, someone else is assisting with. And the whole point of that is because it allows him to be completely in his own world and not have to think about, what do I want to eat for lunch? That takes a few minutes to figure out. Do I need to go cook something? Do I need to go buy something? And I think obviously that's to the extreme, but I think there is something to that. We talked about shirts are one thing where we like to keep, black, gray, white, like a very minimal selection of colors of shirts in the closet, because that's just one less thing you don't have to worry about matching. You have black pants, you have gray, black, and white shirts. You're going to match no matter what. Yeah. And little things like that, though, really do clear your head and I guess just allow more space in your head to be creative, to have new ideas. You're just occupying less of your brain.
You're not thinking about a lot of bullshit.
Yeah.
What do I want to eat? When do I want to go work on this project? There's just, it allows for higher level decision making and higher level creativity. And similar with Elon, I didn't, to a certain extent, not maybe to that scale just yet, but I've been able to witness that with Brandon of Liquid IV. Is like seeing the person manage his schedule and like, Brandon, you have to go do this. Brandon, it's time to do this. Or like just that awareness and seeing it at a high level, you just understand like how valuable people's time really is. And it's like, if you can have somebody that's literally, when you're jump starting your career, you have to be that person. Right. You have to be the person that gets very good at saying no to a lot of things so that you can focus on the things that really are a priority to you. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that comes to being honest with yourself about like, what are my priorities? What are my goals? And if something doesn't align to what you could call your true north, whatever that might be, storytelling, visual content creator, starting businesses, or whatever it might be, if it one doesn't align to my true north, or isn't fully excite me to say yes, you say no.
Exactly.
And you got to get real good at that.
Yep.
You got to get real good at that. Otherwise, you're just wasting time, and I mean, it just adds up.
That's so funny you talk about that, because that's something I think I forgot to mention when I was talking about part of just the transformation the last few months. Saying no was probably the single most important part of that whole process. When I went home for 2 months, it's exactly what I did. I just said no to everything. And I took it too far probably, but then now I think I found a healthy balance where I understand what my true north is, like you, my purpose, and I'm able to kind of just weed things out, right? Because that's the other thing. I think it's very easy to, so I like to set boundaries, right? I like to say, these are my goals. This is where I want to be. And I'm going to set boundaries so that I try not to do anything that doesn't inch me closer to those goals. Mm-hmm. And when those boundaries are set and an opportunity comes in, every day, inevitably, there's something, whether it's big or small, comes in, someone wants me to do something. It's very easy now for me to say, in 2 seconds, say yes or no to that, because I've set these boundaries. Whereas before, this would cause a lot of anxiety because I would weigh it out, almost always say yes, because I just struggled to say no to things. And then I would end up becoming stressed, have way too much to do. And it wasn't even necessarily too much to do. It was that I was doing things, spending way too much time on things that were not inching me closer to my purpose or that ultimate goal. And so to me, that felt like a complete waste of time. And I think any amount of time doing something that, any amount of wasted time is too much wasted time. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, I love that though. And I think, saying no has definitely been like a humongous theme in my life.
Did Essentialism help?
Yes. Book? Yes. Oh my, yeah. And that's actually, so that's a great point. That was right when I went home for those 2 months. Mm-hmm. Essentialism was the book I read during my healing process, which is crazy. Yeah. And it's crazy too, because in the moment I didn't realize how messed up I was emotionally and mentally, but you had sent me this book, which thank you, by the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You always hook it up with those.
Gotta pay it forward.
Yeah. But, I read Essentialism, and, I feel like it gave me the tools. I still had to do all the work for sure.
Totally.
But it gave me the tools, and it kind of gave me a little bit of a direction, and saying no became so easy to me.
Yeah.
So easy. And especially I think it becomes easier if you say no once and you see what it looks like on the other side of that, see what benefits that brings. You're like, man, I'm kind of obsessed with saying no now, because I know that when I say no, that means that there's going to be space created for something new to happen that's aligned with my purpose.
Totally.
So,
and the key is too, love that you're setting the boundaries. Love that there's been a learning process of like it's so easy to assess like, okay, what is this opportunity? You find one pro and you're like, I have to say yes because I'm going to meet somebody, or it's like a good opportunity, or I'm going to make some money. But when you set those boundaries, there's more than just one. It needs to be more than just one pro. There's got to be a list and it checks off. And so I think that takes time. And then what I think it really comes down to, and I talked about it on this podcast that I put out this week, is that it just comes down to how you communicate. So like, hey, do you want to grab coffee today? No. It's like, okay, all right. See you later, brother. Yeah. But if you say, hey, Bobby, now's not the greatest time. I got a lot on my plate. I got to focus on like some of these things right now. I really, appreciate you reaching out. This is like this isn't like homie to homie, but like, when you get these inbound, it's all comes down to how you communicate it. And if you're just gentle about it, like, hey, really appreciate you reaching out. Timing's not great. I got a lot of things I got to focus on. Hope you're doing great. If somebody takes that personal or like fires back at you, like, what do you mean you don't have time, blah, blah, blah. They don't deserve your time in the first place. No. They don't deserve it. So it's like, at the end of the day, when you learn the power of saying no and how that creates space for you to have more time to yourself, then more opportunities can pop up and you have more space to assess them. Exactly. But then 2, you get so much more protective of your time, and you don't feel bad about saying no. It's not personal. It's not like, what am I going to get from the situation? It's just simply, this doesn't align with my true north. See you later. Mail it in. Yep. Not happening.
Yep. And this all ties together with the whole concept of it being a daily battle to check in mentally and emotionally, because I like to look at a situation now. A very easy way for me to say no and not feel bad is to say, all right, if I say yes, I guess what's the alternative to saying no? Like saying yes, and then I know that by saying yes, this is a clone of something that's happened in the past that caused me to feel anxious, which then kind of led to me feeling depressed. So I'm like, it's very easy for me to say no now, because I know a yes potentially could mean a downward spiral, emotionally and mentally. So, I kind of hang on to that, and now I don't feel bad at all, because I understand it's kind of like an investment in myself. It's like some self-love almost.
Yeah.
So
that's key.
Yeah.
Self-love is key. That's the number one priority that I write every single day. So the gratitude in my journal, like the 3 things I'm grateful for, that changes pretty much every day. But the priorities have been the same, essentially, and that number one priority every single day that I'm reminding myself of is self-love and investing in yourself. And just huge. Continuously like finding love for myself and the things that I'm passionate for, and trusting that if I can become the best version of myself, and I'm so authentically me and I love myself, I think I'm like some hot shit, but I'm just so confident in myself, the skin I'm in, I love every piece of me, my mind, everything. When I do that, everything else in my life will pull. You're going to start walking the world differently. You're more woke. You are so much more in tune to just like who you actually are. You're not this big question mark of just trying to figure it out. You're so authentically and vulnerability like yourself that you pull in the people and the opportunities that align with you best, because you're just pushing that energy to the world. Yeah. And that has been a very tough learning for me, even the last couple of months of like doing some self-reflecting of like, well, why am I not always going out on dates? Why am I not always like, why are women not, why do I think they're not attracted to me? Like, is there something about me? Is it the way I project myself to the world? And then I realized, once again, those are just me whiteboarding a bunch of bullshit reasons that I think could be the reason, when it's none of that.
Well, it's definitely not the beard. I can tell you.
Definitely not the beard. But once again, it's one of those moments where I'm whiteboarding a bunch of bullshit reasons that actually aren't true, and I just need to keep investing in myself and just see where it takes me.
Exactly.
But yeah, self-love is key.
Huge.
I love it. That's like the last 6-8 weeks. I'm just like, man, reminding myself. Keep reading books, keep listening to podcasts. When I get home on a Friday night, it's 10 p.m. and I like read some books, like even just mail it in and not need to go out and have that time to myself. And like the other night I was reading a book in my room. It was like 10 p.m. and I was like, this is fucking gnarly, dude. I'm just like in this book and I'm loving it. And I'm like so happy to be alone and just soak up this moment and this knowledge and how it's helping me and it's teaching me, I don't know. Yeah, just like trying to appreciate it all.
I've been definitely trying to have more of those moments where we can get into this later. But I remember something I've been trying to practice is like when I find myself in a moment where I'm very grateful and I'm very happy. I don't remember where I heard this or might have read this from, but it was basically like just trying to use all of your senses. Pick, one thing you can smell, taste. Oh, it was Jay Shetty actually. I heard him talk about
the GOAT.
Yeah. He talked about this in this video. I think it was actually a video I was editing, and he was talking about this concept of being present. And he said, pick one thing you can smell, taste, hear, see, and feel. And when you do that in a moment, it's much easier to remember how you felt in that moment when you have all of these things. So, like I said, we can get into this later, but there was a moment last weekend where I was with Logan Paul and his team.
And we're diving in. We're diving
We're
into it
diving
right
in.
now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
that's the beauty of this podcast. When
Yeah.
it pops up, we
Yeah.
go, we roll.
So
Give the context of how this opportunity kind of happened.
I'll finish
Go.
this real quick because
You're
it's
the
kind of
storyteller.
unrelated.
Let it ride.
But yeah. So just back to the presence thing and whatever, being appreciative of the moment, self-love, all of that. We were at a restaurant and I stepped away from the table to go to the bathroom, and I was in the bathroom all alone. And I remember I just like went in a stall, closed the door, and just like sat there for a minute. And I did that. I like looked around. I was in a bathroom, but I like looked around. The bathroom smelled great, so I captured the smell. But you know what I mean? Like I kind of sat there for a minute and was just like, damn, this is awesome. And like, not because I was with Logan Paul, but it was just, I felt so happy. And I'd had such a fulfilling weekend doing what I had worked so hard to learn, filmmaking. And I just felt so grateful that I was in California, eating great food with amazing people, just got off of a great weekend, out in the desert working, and I just felt grateful. So I've been trying to do things like that more often, where I'm in a moment, just kind of take a mental snapshot of that, and just be grateful for the little things, but on the other hand, sometimes I'm in the shower alone at home and I have those moments where I'm like, I'm just so stoked right now. Like life, like this is great. I'm so grateful for this, and this. So, in every situation I try to do that, but
that's good.
Yeah.
The Logan Paul stuff, like the fact that I think it's so interesting that you had this opportunity to work with him in any capacity, because we've definitely, we've talked about him and his content, and more specifically his podcast. I feel like in the last 6 months, we've probably passed along, like, you see who Logan just had on the podcast, or I've sent maybe links to you, but I for sure have grown to appreciate his podcast.
Yeah.
I think it's very authentic. It's very it's just got a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Like shits and gigs, some real stuff, some business. It's a very well diverse podcast, and I gravitate towards. I also have empathy for him, and when you are in the limelight, like the way he grew up with his YouTube stuff, and he deserves all the things that he has in his life because he worked for it. Although he had that moment in, I don't know if it was 2017, 2018, when he was in the vlog that he put out, and that really hurt his career. I really have empathy because it's like, he's a kid, he doesn't know what he's doing. All that to say, I think we've talked about his content a lot in the past. So for you, it's just like, even just to go a little bit more of like, even though you're sitting in the bathroom and like taking a moment to appreciate, which I love. How was it for you to this is somebody you're consuming their content, you're seeing on social media, to then actually being out, not only in the presence of him, but outside of the norm? Like, you weren't with him in downtown LA, which is you're always in the scene. Like, you guys were out. There maybe wasn't even cell service, which makes everybody even more present. So to see somebody that you consume on not a daily basis, but you consume online, to then being in person with them, were there any anything that was there any things that were surprising to you, or what was that just overall feel like?
Yeah, well, it was surreal, first of all, because I've been watching him since Vine, since I was in high school, which is crazy.
Before you even started cooking up content.
Oh, way before, yeah.
Wow.
And then I feel like I got away from him a bit in high school. I didn't watch his vlogs, but then the podcast happened, and I remember I've been probably watching his podcast for 2 years now. And so, it was surreal to meet him and to, I don't know, it's always wild. But I have nothing but amazing things to say about him. From the podcast, I think you get a good scope of how he actually is. Because similar to every creator, I think the vlogs, and when you're on camera, you have a character that you have to play. You know what I mean?
You also
he's
can
Logan
chop
Paul.
and edit.
Exactly, yeah.
You can retake that wasn't a good intro, let me start. The podcast, it's the most authentic, straight through. You can cut segments, but pretty hard to fake.
Very hard, yeah. Especially with guests who are having conversations.
Totally.
So, I think of David Dobrik. I'm sure David Dobrik isn't sitting there making jokes, laughing 24/7. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Right. So, it was cool to see him, like you said, in a very chill, relaxed, kind of intimate environment. You know what I mean? We went we went out to his ranch and stayed there for the weekend. And it's truly in the middle of nowhere. So yeah, like you said, no cell service. I don't even know how close the closest neighbor is. Like very far away. The town. Yeah, we went and ate dinner, and the closest town is like 30 minutes away. So
what part of California was this? Like giving away too much details.
Yeah, no.
Like how? Like 2 hours north of
it
LA?
was it was like inland. Like
Okay.
I honestly don't even really know.
Awesome.
I just hopped in the
Perfect.
car and we plugged in the GPS.
Oh, you guys want me to drive to Utah? Perfect.
Yeah.
I'll be there.
But yeah, just out in the middle of the desert. And so it was cool to see him in that environment where we just wake up, cook some eggs, make a little omelet, like make some coffee out of the Keurig, sit down, like you know, go out and ride ATVs in the desert. Just had a very like it really felt like in 2 days. Actually, I'll compare it to, this is a different thing, but I'll compare it to the Wim Hof trip.
We're hitting that too today.
But
Sorry.
yeah,
I'm glad.
I'll compare it to that because that was one of those settings where we all got put out in the middle of the forest in a cabin in bunk beds. And we were only there for like 5 days, but it felt, we all to this day still have like monthly Zoom calls to catch up because you built like a brotherhood is what it felt like. And this felt like a lower scale, but yeah, I've said this to all my friends. I say I'm so grateful that I got to work with him and his team in this capacity versus meeting them at a nightclub in LA.
Totally,
you know what I mean?
Totally.
And so, yeah, it was great, man. It was also cool to be around him off camera and to see how, I mean, that dude is so smart. I mean, if there's anyone, like, love or hate him, I think anyone can admit he knows content. I mean, the dude's been crushing the content game for a decade now, you know? And it was so fascinating to, you know, see into his mind a bit and like see how dialed in and calculated he is with business, with everything he does. You know, everyone kind of looks at him and thinks he's this kid who just runs around and does crazy things, buys crazy stuff, whatever. But very calculated and very smart and strategic. And it's crazy. It's just like his life is an entire company. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's
wild.
He's
a media company.
So long story short, it was super cool. I had a great time, got some great content. And personally, I actually needed the trip as well. I think just from like just kind of getting out of LA and spending a weekend with people that elevated me. Like I found myself in situations or conversations where these people were making me better and pushing me to be better than I am. And I think sometimes we all struggle with surrounding ourselves with people that are better than us, like smarter, whatever that means, you know, smarter, better at business, whatever. And I love to do that. I love to be around people that are better than me in some facet. And so, yeah, it was great. Long story short, had a great time. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, just to go off of that, that's literally the key is to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. You never want to be the smartest person in the room. You learn a lot more. Such a like easy hack, but there's people that it you know kills their ego when they're like, I'm not the smartest person in the room. It's like that sucks. I never want to be in that place. But yeah, that's incredible. We don't have to go into like, is there going to be like some content coming out for this or what's the,
yeah. So long
much.
Story short, the reason I was there is, there's this app called Speechify. And just for context, all the app does is basically the creator of it, very smart person, went to an Ivy League school, but had dyslexia. So he created this app in college to read his textbook back to him just for himself. So he could study. And, cause he can obviously just listening is way easier than trying to read. He totally. Like can't read basically. So he created this app and then now Speechify is, a humongous app for people with dyslexia or even just, you know, even like lawyers use it to like read through contracts, right? Like you can bump the speed up, whatever, you take a picture of the contract, it reads it. So wow. It's a cool app. I've been working with Cliff as the CEO and he's a young dude, so smart, and been working with him on some stuff. And it was actually the night before we left. It was 2 a.m. and I was wrapping up an editing session as always and going to bed.
Crushing Red Bulls.
Just
6 deep.
Just threw away my third Red Bull for the night. And, but I laid down and Cliff texted me and said, hey, do you want to go to well, I don't even think he asked me. He said, we're going to Logan's Ranch tomorrow and like pack a bag. We're going to stay for the weekend. And I was like, I don't even think I responded at that moment. Or I may have said like, sounds good. But I was like, I'm just going to go to bed and like wake up in the morning and like process this. Cause I don't.
So that was one of those moments where like, it wasn't even supposed to, you didn't even know it was happening.
Oh no. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I love that.
So yeah, then the next day we cruised over to the ranch. And so when we were there, the point of me being, this is another thing that's cool. So I was really only there to shoot. The reason we went is because we used Logan's horse in this video. Okay. And so
I can't wait to see what that even means.
Yeah,
but...
I know. Yeah. It's funny. You'll love the video, but we needed a horse. So that was how this conversation even started. And then Logan was just kind enough that he's like, yeah, like bring some of your team members, bring your sister, bring your videographer, and just, you can use my horse, but just stay for the weekend. And that was super cool because Logan has access to, I would imagine, pretty much anyone he wants to spend the weekend with on his ranch.
Yeah.
And it was cool that he didn't know me. He didn't know any of the team members, but he was the best host ever, and so inviting, so inclusive with everything, like made sure everyone felt, like made a point to try to talk to everyone all the time. And it was just insane. I'm like, he has no reason in the world to give me the time of day. But so that part was really cool. But yeah, we shot this video, and then the rest of it was like 95% just kicking it.
That's
and
amazing.
Like, I just kind of documented it, but it was super chill. And yeah, there was no pressure really. Like Logan wasn't really filming. We didn't really film much outside of this video we shot. So
sounds like maybe he needed the weekend too.
Yeah.
To like just disconnect and not be trying to be like some figure because he's around all these other people.
And
he probably benefited just as much as you benefit from him to be around people that he has no idea who you guys are. He's not there to assess how can I get something from these guys. He's there to literally be of service. He's there to be of service to you guys, to provide the horse, to provide the ranch, and to have a great weekend and to leave. That probably felt incredible to him because there was no real monetary value benefit to him other than to be of service.
It was so amazing. Like I remember we were shooting this little video and we were doing our own thing. And like Logan just like walks over and starts like helping, like looking over my shoulder and helping me like.
Oh, you love that, I bet.
Yeah, but I'm like, dude, it's so funny. I'm like,
it's somebody you freaking watched growing up.
Well, it's so funny too because it was the little things like you just said. Like he was there to just be of service, and I'm like, dude, trust me, you don't have to do this right now. Like it's fine. But yeah, man, it was so cool. And actually, back to my point of being in a room with people that are smarter than you. That was actually, I think he kind of touched on this a bit, but his intention with inviting Cliff and the team out there was, he wanted to let us do this and just have a fun weekend, but also like he's fascinated by all of these computer engineers and, people that are absolutely crushing it with this app and creating, AI software, all this stuff. And like, he's a student for sure. Like, he has that mindset of always being a student and always wanting, never the master, always the student, Mm-hmm. And I don't know, man. I think all in all, it was just really inspiring for me to see someone of his caliber and just watch how they operate.
Yeah.
And see, it was reassuring as well because, out here you can run into successful people that are complete assholes or people that are the nicest people you've ever met. And I think it was reassuring to me that Logan was like being a servant the whole time to us and just providing value. And it kind of just reassured how I want to go, carry myself and treat other people because I know how it made me feel.
Yeah.
And I know how whenever I treat other people that way, how that's going to make them feel.
Yeah.
So it was cool, man.
Damn,
yeah.
That's epic.
Yeah.
That is gnarly. I've been curious to hear a little bit more as to what that weekend was about. But I knew, obviously, with us doing this podcast, like, don't tell me anything. We'll just talk about it then. But, dude, it sounds like we might have to get your boy Cliff in here for a podcast at some point.
At like 1,000%. Man.
Sounds very interesting.
Cliff is the man.
Very interesting.
So interesting. It's actually a new. He's not really a client because he's a friend, but it's a new business venture that I'm very excited about because this app, like, it truly is changing the world. Like it's changing people's lives, you know? It allowed him to, like, he said that he was in like the special like learning classes in high school and middle school because he couldn't read, but then went and, crushed it at an Ivy League school in college because he figured out it was just a matter of like getting the info in his brain, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's fascinating that he's been able to do that for other people and just change people's lives. So I've personally enjoyed it a lot. Like, it's super fun. He's the man, but it's also like working on something that has for a
True
greater
purpose.
good. And yeah, it's amazing.
It's always about the why too, I think, of like the fact that alone hasn't me sold on the product because I know this is somebody that's genuinely starting something to solve a problem that they had.
Yeah.
So at the core, at its heart, it's like this is something that they are passionate about because it's something that they had to deal with, you know? So I think that's like a true indication of like, is somebody on the right path or not? Like, do they actually connect to it at heart because it was a past experience or because something had impacted their lives in any way? Like, the why is always I think a real good indicator of the longevity or the authenticity of whatever that person does.
Yeah.
So I think that just adds to the story, and I'm sure I've never even knew of the app, but I'm not going to be surprised when this thing gets acquired for $1 billion because it sounds like it was started for the right reasons.
Yeah.
You mentioned Whim Hoff, and I definitely want to touch on that because similarly, what you were just talking about how like you're shooting freaking with Logan Paul over the weekend, and Logan's like over your shoulder, like giving you some input. This is somebody that you were inspired by, probably watched growing up, and now you're like associated with this person. You get connected with Lewis Howes, I don't know how long ago, and just knowing that a friend of mine, was working with the man that essentially led me to getting into the podcast game, just like blew my mind of like, how's this even possible? Like, this is somebody that like genuinely fall of 2015, we'll never forget it. I'm starting to listen to podcasts. I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing after college. I got 6 months till graduation. And Lewis and Gary Vee were the two people. Lewis inspired me to start the podcast. Gary Vee gave me like the day-to-day fire inside me to keep going through his content. But it was so weird for me to see you start working with Lewis. And then it's the point where like I've communicated with him via DM once in a while, or like the day he followed me on IG, I was like, what the fuck is happening, But to see you evolve and grow with him, and then to have this opportunity to go to, dude, I don't know if it was before you left and you told me you gave me a rundown on the list of who was going. I think it was before you left.
Yeah, because I was at Liquid IV like a week before I left or something.
Totally.
Yeah.
You're like, here's the list of people. And I see the list. You got Lewis Howes as the pilot of this ship, flying everybody out to Whim Hoff. You got Mike Posner on board. You got Aubrey Marcus. I think that's his full name. Is it Aubrey Marcus? Yeah.
Aubrey Marcus.
Yep. I've seen his content. I was like, okay, how is he pulling this off? Mathew Hussey.
Yep.
Word. And I'm trying to think if there's anybody else. I didn't write anyone else's name, but
like Jesse Itzler.
Yeah,
he was one.
I was just You're like, do you know any of these guys? I'm like, yeah. Talk to me about how that opportunity came about, and what was that like?
Yeah, friend of a friend kind of thing. So one of my friends, Zach Kravitz, who, by the way, I need to give him a shout out. He's
Zach.
The man, dude.
He's been on the pod before. I gotta give Kravitz a quick little shout out.
He was actually real quick too. He was a huge part of the last about 4 months whenever I was struggling.
Yep.
Because Zach's very vocal about mental challenges and all of that stuff. So yeah, Zach's the man. But anyway, Zach had worked with Lewis. I don't remember how long, but he had been working for Lewis doing content, and Zach no longer is kind of in that game as much anymore. So this opportunity came up where Lewis was like, hey, I'm taking a trip to Poland to stay with Whim Hoff for a week, and I've got these people coming, and I need someone to come document it. So Zach was unavailable, hit me up, and I was like, I actually was very resistant to the idea at first, because this was also peak me starting to feel depressed. I had just broken up with my girlfriend. I was just not in the, and I was also traveling like all the time everywhere. So, taking another international flight and going out, and I'd seen Yes Theory's documentary, and I'm like, this, and I talked to Como about it, and I'd been like, yeah, this looks hard. Like this. So
this isn't you guys going to Cabo, sipping margaritas by the water. This is a full send battle.
Yes. So, So anyway, I think I had said no or told him like maybe, and then something in me was like, dude, just go, and like you're probably not going to get this opportunity again, which is actually really ironic because that was the last flight I took before Corona happened. So I'm very glad. I would have been so, just proves the point of like, definitely you don't want to do anything that you might regret later on. So I said yes, and within a couple weeks was on a flight to Poland, and I actually met Lewis. I think I met him for the first time at the airport, or I had met him maybe once before just to have a meeting to make sure that I wasn't like a serial killer or anything. But
like we talked that day. Like, I got to grab coffee with Lewis today. I was like, oh, word.
Oh,
my bad. Sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
Sorry, bro. Tough afternoon.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, went to Poland. It was a 24-hour travel day, which was a really insane way to start off the trip. And yeah, man, got there, stayed at Whim Hoff's for a week. Got to meet, and it was funny too, because at the time I think I only knew like Mike Posner. Like I think I had heard of Steve Weatherford. He's like a punter for the Giants when they won a Super Bowl. But yeah, I didn't really know anyone, and then I got to slowly figure out who everyone was, and I was like, oh, word, Jesse's a part owner of the Atlanta Hawks, just very dialed in people. And they were all, I would say, probably like 35 or like 30 to like 50. So just so much wisdom in one room. But yeah, man, long story short, every day, we started off doing just the breathing method the first day, and then did a little bit of like a cold exposure out, because we went in like January, so it was freezing cold in Poland. Every day we would just kind of do something outside that was a little more challenging. I think the second day we did like a 10-minute ice bath. And the ice bath, it was funny. It was actually outside his house. It's a hot tub that was just full of water, and they just let it freeze overnight. And so I literally had to break the ice to get into it. So it was super cold, but yeah, we did that. We did, the cliff jumping into the like frozen pond or waterfall, whatever it was. And then in between there though, I think what I always say is, I think something I'll never forget, or the part that I won't ever forget, are the nights because there was no TV, no service, no anything. We're all just out there sleeping in bunk beds.
Did you have top or bottom bunk?
So I got lucky. I took, in the meditation, there's like a room that they kind of use to do all the breath work. There's a little kind of loft up top, and I smelled that out within the first couple minutes and threw my bags on it. So I was up there. I think I was in, there was 3 beds. It was Aubrey, Marcus, Posner, and then me.
No big deal.
And
oh my god,
man.
Dalton.
And like little things like that were crazy, man. Like seeing the way that Posner
this was right after was this after he walked across America?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So seeing the way he operates in the morning, like was up way before everyone else. Like I remember one morning I woke up and I looked over and he was meditating and doing some like breath work, and I look over and he's just got, his eyes are closed and he's just in his own world. Biggest smile on his face ever. Like the sun's coming through, and I'm like seeing someone that was just so grateful to be in that moment was like, it was mind blowing, man. Yeah. So things like that, I think, like nights where we would just all, we had a chef actually come out to the house, which was a crucial part to the whole trip, because you're so far from everything out. You're really secluded there. And it was a vegan chef. So we were eating vegan, and she was giving us, all of the nutrients and proteins, whatever we needed to recover from all this stuff. So that was another huge part. I felt just so clear mentally. I was just eating great. I was getting exercise every day, like very difficult exercise. And so, yeah, man. But anyway, I was going to say, like, every night we would have tea or coffee, whatever, and just sit around. There was a little camp or a little fireplace at the house, and we just talk. And I had the best, I don't think I ever said one word the whole time. I just had my camera on and just like sat there and listened. And some of the conversations and the way that those guys conduct themselves, I think gave me such a clear vision for the man that I strive to be someday soon. And yeah, it was so wild, man. It was just so cool. And like, it was cool too, because we talked about this a lot, where we all felt like this trip wouldn't have been, because there was debate. They were actually debating, I guess. I didn't know this until after, but they were debating on renting out like a little resort off site from Wim Hof, because just for comfort, I guess, and like because they knew that it was going to be intense. And they opted to just go stay at the house and do the bunk bed thing. Like, it was like community shower set up, right? Wow. Like, and so, but we talked and we're like, this trip wouldn't have been half the trip it was if we weren't all kind of like back in those middle school, field trip days where you're bunked up with your friends. And yeah, man. So I think that environment just cultivated just a place for everyone to feel so vulnerable. And that's the other thing is, like, I think going through the cold exposure stuff, I know that all of us hit our most vulnerable moments, where there was moments where it felt like I was seriously going to die. You know what I mean? Like, specifically the hike we did the last day, it was like a 4-hour hike. It was -4. All I had on was boots, shorts, and a beanie. And I remember there was a moment where I was like I remember thinking they just saw me in my most vulnerable state. Like, I was just a complete mess, right? Like, I was so cold, and that was cool because I think seeing each other in that way just developed like a respect, and this relationship was built on just such a, I don't know what the right word is, I guess genuine state of vulnerability that we all got extremely close in that week. And yeah, man, it was really wild. It was like, I feel like this happened almost a year ago, and I feel like I'm still processing the trip. Yeah. Just so much packed into 1 week.
Yeah. I'm glad that you guys didn't stay at some resort, because I think that would have just derailed the entire experience. I mean, I wasn't even there, but that would separate you guys into your own rooms and like, all right, see you guys tomorrow. But like, you guys got the full experience of living there and breathing it and cutting yourself off from the internet and just being there and just
little things like, like do all of us doing the dishes. Like, there was no dishwasher, so all of us doing the dishes together. Like, what, you know what I mean? It was just those random in between moments. To me, at least for me, were the most impactful, and I was very vocal to them about that. At the end of it, I was like, man, I just truly feel so grateful that I got to be even a fly on the wall for this whole thing, because, and I let them know that they may not understand it, but at the time I was 21, I think. Yeah, I was 21. And I was like, I don't think you understand what you just did for a 21-year-old boy's life. Like, seeing the way that these men, even hearing the way that they go about their marriages, go about all of these different things. I don't think they understand the impact that had on me, and how much that's going to impact the way that I move forward with the rest of my life. Yeah. So
I believe it, dude. 21. It's a vulnerable time to be witnessing and being part of an experience like that. Yeah. Because your mind is just still so much developing, and to be around that, it just shapes and molds into the most ideal state of mind, because you're around people that have been through some crazy stuff. Yeah. I mean, dude, I can't even imagine. One thing you said, and I really wanted to touch this, a little bit deeply today, was at that moment in time, you were kind of going through like a breakup with your girlfriend. As of today, and I know it's been a roller coaster ride over the last year, maybe a couple of years. I don't know the context of it, but how has this relationship with this one specific person, what have you learned? Not specifically from her, but about coming to acceptance that of like timing, or like not putting the blame on somebody else, not putting the blame on you, not trying to force something that maybe it's clear that it's just not working. Like what's the mindset right now at this moment in time? Because I think this has been a long journey, and I think you've figured out some things and approaches to relationships or to something like this. Where are you at with this right now?
Man, yeah, this is there's a lot, but I think if I had to boil it down, I would say similar to attaching my self-identity to career. This is one thing I've learned, is that moving forward in any relationship, I make sure that it's built on a relationship, not built on me leaning on them for any sense of validation or worth or whatever that might be. Because that definitely was happening. And it's also, I think with that, it can be subtle sometimes. I didn't know that it was happening. I thought I was happy alone, and I thought that being in this relationship was just making me happier. But it's kind of complex. But I think, another thing is, like, we started dating in high school, and we were very different people then, like I hadn't touched a camera. And then, you grow up. It's crazy. I moved to LA the same exact day she moved to college. So it was that was a big moment, I think, where we were both like moving into our first place alone, going off and like kind of starting our lives in a way, And so I've since then kind of been able to be aware that we just met when we were at very different stages in our life. And it was great for the moment in high school, but post high school, it just wasn't a good fit. And I think some of the biggest lessons I've learned, though, is, man, people say this all the time, that you have to be happy by yourself before you can be in a relationship and truly not make someone else happy, but just be the best version of you in a relationship. I couldn't grasp what that meant until the last time we broke up. Because right now I feel, like I said, the happiest I felt in so long. And I feel this weird sense of like, it doesn't, I used to get very caught up. Like if I would meet a girl and I thought she was great, I would get super caught up in that really quick because I was latching on to something that brought me happiness in that moment. But now I've got a way more fluid motion, kind of, where I meet someone, they're great, cool. Like if we end up talking in a couple days, great. If I never see them again, cool with it. Cause I'm happy with me,
Yeah.
And definitely just giving things up and letting them, understanding that I can't force anything. So, and all I can control, back to what you said earlier, is my own happiness and how I feel about myself. And all the other pieces will fall into place, how they're supposed to, when they're supposed to, with the person they're supposed to. And yeah, man, I mean, it's been a struggle for sure. Like I had a very rocky relationship. It was back and forth all the time. And as it would be with anyone, I think, though, like I was 20 when I moved to LA, and she was 18. And the same day we moved to, she moved to college, I moved here. And like that obviously caused a lot of issues. But I learned so much about myself through all of this. And I just learned who I want to be, and also dialed in who I want to be with, like what that person looks like. And I don't think that I deserve that person until I become the person I want to be.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man, it's been complicated I definitely don't know everything about relationships. I don't have all the secrets figured out, but, I do know that, at least for me personally, making myself happy and letting everything else take care of itself has done wonders in my life.
I'm reading a book, I just finished a book called The Mastery of Love. Cool. And it talks about all of this, which is like you articulated so well. But we oftentimes, and we as in humans, we often seek other people to bring us the happiness. And that doesn't really have a very good long-term track record, because people change. you change. And if you're relying on somebody to bring you happiness and they decide to move on to something else in their life, what do? You have no happiness. Like that person was like the heartbeat of your happiness, and now they're gone. Like you're just like wrecked and you don't know what to do. And it's not to say that even if you are somebody that's fully confident who you are, heartbreaks can't happen. It can. But the idea of this book of Mastery of Love, which I really recommend, it's an easy read, is like you have to really fall in love with yourself before you can fall in love with anybody else. And when you find that other person, it's not putting your happiness in them. It's that energy of like elevating each other and being the biggest supporter for that person, vice versa. And it was just so mind opening for me too, because as somebody who wasn't really putting time and energy into that aspect of my life for a long time, I was like trying to rewire the way I looked at like, I meet somebody that I'm like really interested in. I'm like, fuck, I got to put time and intention in there to like shoot the shot. But then I'm like, wait a second, if I'm going too heavy in too quick, that could scare them away. I come off as too aggressive. It's finding that balance of showing interest and like trying to at least test the waters and see like, is there something there? But also like letting it marinate and like being fluid with life. And like you said, like if I don't talk to this person for a couple of days, like it's fine. Or like, it's just like very just like, you're not attached to trying to forcefully make it work. And you're just more of like the third bullet of my priorities is the same. The 3 priorities are always the same right now. We talked about the first one already. The third bullet is be more present and patient. And stop thinking about like, I haven't talked to this person in a couple of days, or I don't have any plans with this person. Be present. Where am I right now? And have patience for those types of relationships and whatnot. But ultimately, I think a lot of people can fall into that trap of like relying on somebody to bring them the happiness. And similar to what I was saying earlier, at least what I like to believe and like what I think I've seen happen for other people is by being your best self, by loving yourself, by just like doing the best of your ability to be the best version of yourself and just investing in yourself, you weirdly attract the person that is looking for somebody similar like you. And then it elevates because you are not relying on them for happiness. They're not relying on you. And I think that's how you find. Now, once again, I'm trying to figure it out for myself. So I don't. This is my beard wisdom, but I'm still trying to figure it out. But I weirdly like to believe that by me going all into myself, by pushing out all this energy to the world through Instagram, through podcasts, being my authentic self, I'm going to attract the person that likes me for who I am and not me trying to be somebody that I'm not because I'm trying to fit a mold to fit this person. Exactly. But to have that realization and to come out of it from where I think you are it's powerful. And that, from where you were in high school to where you are now, that's how it is. Who I was in high school to where I am now, it's 2 different people. Yeah. But coming to accept it, I guess what I'm really trying to say is not only do you have to like invest in yourself and really love yourself before you can love other people, but the acceptance and not trying to whiteboard like, well, it's her fault. She went to college. Well, it's my fault. I came to LA and I'm chasing my dreams. Forget all that. It was a time and place where you guys walked together and it made sense. Now it's not the right time. Maybe down the road it circles back. Happened for my boy Ryan Gosling in The Notebook. Could happen for you, Dalton. It could happen for me.
That's so funny. I got a quick question too. What do you think? Because you talked about how people are forever changing, and when you commit to be with someone forever, that change is still inevitable. Mm-hmm. What do you think some of the key points are to? I'm interested to hear what you think the key points are to. I guess how does that relationship? How do you continually stay in a flow state where it's okay if your partner ends up maybe they don't want to be in the career they're in anymore and they want to go do something else, or maybe when things change, people change as you get older. Like how do you think that you go about that? What are some of the key things there?
That's tough. Yeah, that's really tough. I mean, like the idea of marriage is a whole nother conversation.
Well, yeah.
But I think you just have to come to terms and acceptance that we are all constantly evolving and changing. It's inevitable. Not controllable. Can't control the controllables. People are changing. And so, and I don't, tell me if this answers your question or not, but you can't control how somebody else is evolving and changing and what they want to do with their life, or if they change that they don't have the feelings for you that they thought they did. You can't control that. So the sooner you accept that and you come to terms with that, I think you realize that if it's not within your control, you can't stress it. You can't allow yourself to put energy into whiteboarding all the things that cause that to happen. You can only control the controllables. So if you're in a relationship and the other person wants to change careers, or, I think you're supposed to be that supporter. But even then, if you yourself have these epiphanies and you realize, like, I want to change and I want to do this and I want to change a career and go to here, that's okay too. I'm so excited to know where I'll be in 5 years, but I'm so open to it and I'm not worried about it because I know that my goals and values are going to change with time. I think due to repetition and due to having that space from podcasting for that extended period of time and then coming back to it, I've really realized that I really love this. And I think it's something that I'll do for the rest of my life. To a certain extent, storytelling, conversation piece, long format. I think I figured that out, but the way I do it is going to change with time, and I'm open to wherever that world looks like. So I don't know if that really answers the question that you were kind of asking, but I think at the core, it's like we are constantly evolving. You can't be attached to if somebody wants to change into somebody else, or if they want to go do something else and they want to move to a different country. You got to accept it. Like, you have to really be excited for them and think like, wow, this is somebody that has an idea for what they want to do and they want to take a leap and go do something unorthodox or something different.
And I don't think you can have that mindset if you're not at peace with yourself and happy inside,
No, because when you're at peace with that and you're at peace with yourself and you're in love with yourself, you understand, like, all I can do is keep doing what I'm doing to the best of my ability. So there's no point in me stressing it. Yeah. I don't have the capacity or time I can't allow myself to do that, because I need to, once again, invest in myself, provide more self-love to myself, read more books, listen to more podcasts, produce more podcasts, reach out to guests. I need to continuously reinvest into myself because that's the only thing I can control. Biggest blessing, without getting into the details, was my senior year of college. Fell head over heels for a girl. She was still a sophomore. I felt very strongly for her, but I knew I was graduating in like 2-3 months. And I said to myself, when we talked about it earlier during the podcast, I know in my mind, she's going to say, I'm going to ask her to be my girlfriend. I know she's going to say no, because we haven't talked about the date, like becoming official, but I the last couple of months have been rocky and I know she's not interested in that. But I can live at peace for the rest of my life knowing that I at least took that shot. So picked her up one night, thought it through how I wanted to say it, asked her to be my girlfriend, knew the answer was coming, and it was a no. And I was like, it changed the perspective of like when I left college and then went down this path of podcasting and trying to figure out my life, was like, that moment in time, I couldn't control how somebody felt about me. I can only control how I reacted to that situation. And I moved on, and I moved on in the sense of like, I have to keep moving. I have to keep going. It took me a long time to actually mentally get through like that little thing we had going for my senior year, because I just like, I allowed my mind to whiteboard, this is the girl, we need to be in a relationship, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. And it took me a long time of deep work to get that out of my head. But looking back, it was such a blessing, because it was the moment in time I learned I can't control how somebody else feels about me. I can only control my own actions and my own decision making and my own emotions. And so I'm about to start this podcast. I'm not going to even try to put time into somebody else, because I have to put that time into me. But I also know that for the rest of my life, I at least took that shot. I'll never look back and regret what I should have asked her to be. I should have asked her to be my girlfriend. I could have. Why didn't I? I knew the answer was 99% going to be a no, but I feel so good knowing that for the rest of my life, I can look back and go, I fucking tried.
You did.
Took the shot.
It's huge.
Yeah.
That's all you can do, man.
That's all you can do. How many tattoos do you have?
5.
What's your favorite one?
Probably my most recent one on my thigh.
Coordinates of hometown?
Yeah, got the coordinates. It seems a little cheesy, but I got it at so I got the coordinates to home in Indiana. And
what part of Indiana too?
It's like northern Indiana. I mean, I'm from a tiny town, but the closest city that people may know is like South Bend. That's where the University of Notre Dame's at.
Gotcha.
So, but I got it when I was home, actually, and I was
2 months.
Yeah, and it was at a very pivotal moment in that time. I got it not because I want to know the coordinates of where I'm from, but because I wanted to always have a reminder that I guess what matters to me, and home to me is just all encompassing of whatever that is. You know, my wife one day, my family, the physical place I'm from. Because I think that was one of my biggest reflections throughout this period of growth, was that I got so far from home physically, moved to LA, but so just out of tune with my family and my friends and who actually matter to me. That's what makes me tick. And so that's the meaning behind it. My favorite tattoo. How about you though? What's your favorite? That's tough, man. Because they're all so meaningful.
Yeah, each has its own story. I think if I had to pinpoint one, probably the 19,002. I think it's a reminder to me of like consistency, discipline for, total number of Uber rides driven in my career, and to do something 19,002 times. I don't know. I love that that's the number.
So cool.
It means a lot to me. But all the tattoos, that's what I love about all these pieces. They mean a lot. But if I had to pick one that means the most, I think the 19,002 just speaks to so many different levels.
Yeah.
So it's like,
yeah,
I wear it like a badge of honor, baby.
It's amazing.
Got it freaking tatted on me. Is there an area of your life you need to put more effort into? Or do you feel like everything's in motion? You're working on everything. My personal opinion, everything's always a work in progress. But is there anything specific that like you're like, I need to put more effort into this?
I think right now I'm doing a very good job at putting effort into a healthy amount of effort into career, friendships, relationships, family. I think the one missing piece that I could dive a little deeper into is finding more and more ways to take care of myself. I'm doing a pretty good job, but there's still plenty of days where I make an excuse and don't get any physical activity that day.
Oh, yeah.
There's plenty of days where I eat horribly because I'm so busy that all I can do is order a pizza and eat that for the day, Even on the more like mental side of things, I think I could spend way more time not feeling guilty about taking a second to read or journal or call up a friend and have a conversation about whatever. But I'd say overall, I'm definitely moving in the direction that I need to be moving in. So yeah. How about you?
Everything's in progress for sure. I like the big buckets would be Like career-wise, we're crushing it within like what I need to do with Liquid IV for our podcasting stuff. So that's a work in progress. This getting back into the podcast game has been major in the last 3 months. I just looked. I was at episode, before you got here, I was at episode 13 at the end of July, and we're at 47 this week. So 2 podcasts a week for the last August, September, October, November. 16 weeks straight, 2 pods a week. So just been full throttle, which feels so good. Been saying yes a lot more to like gather, like social distancing, COVID stuff related, like, you know, spaced out stuff, right. But a lot more yes to like opportunities to meet a lot of people, which has been incredible. And then
even like the other day when we were on the beach and like situations like
exactly. Yeah. Just like saying yes and just going with the flow. And then dating has been another area I've been trying to put more effort into. Not in the sense of like, just like, all right, I haven't been on a date in 6 months. Like, gotta go on, or like 6 weeks, or like, I'm not worried about that because I'm not here to just put in reps. I'm not here to just like go on a date to just go on a date, but more so like when I see, like we were just talking about, when I see somebody that I'm like attracted to for multiple reasms, not just their hair, their look, like it has to be more than that. That's actually something I was talking to my cousin last night. It's like, I'm when I was younger and in college, it was just about looks. And like, if they look great, I'm sold, I'm going for it. Now I'm like, it's a checklist. Like, I think there always has to be some sexual desire and tension of like their looks and their appearance that's going to pull you in. But for me, I need to know like I want to hear more about your mind. Like, what's the way you think? What are your goals? What are your intentions? If it doesn't check off of like interest in me, I'm not wasting my time. I'm not going to waste your time, honestly, either. So it's like now what I've been doing is like, if I see somebody that like, there's somebody for sure. There's a couple, you know, if I see somebody that I'm like, there's a lot of boxes to check off, then put that time and effort in, but be gentle and patient, but like at least throw it out there and not be scared to shoot the shot and like show the interest, but also let it marinate. So across the board, I'd say I'm definitely like balancing everything and putting in respectful time and energy. So I feel very balanced, and the like staying in touch with people is another one, which is tough to do, but just try to not be so self-critical because it's very easy. There's always going to be room to grow, and there's always going to be areas you have to work on. But at this moment in time, I feel really good that the areas that I wanted to work on 3 months ago, if you asked me that question, I have been making effort, and I'm continuously making effort. So it feels good. It feels very good, and I feel like I'm hitting my best strides of living in LA. And it's amazing. In the middle of a pandemic right now.
I feel the same way, which is very random, but yeah, feel lucky to have that. You know?
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's wild, man.
We're about to hit 2021, which is crazy. I don't know. I'm in some scheduling conflicts right now because I'm trying to figure. I might take a break with like during the holidays, step away from the podcast. I'm going home, so I might take like 2 weeks off. So this might be like one of the last podcasts of 2020, or it might be top of 2021. But what's one lesson you want to take with you into the new year? Or what's a motto that you want to continue to remind yourself of?
I want to make sure that not only just in 2021, but for the rest of my life, I never let someone into my life who is only there for what I do, not who I am. And I'm put that responsibility on myself though, because it doesn't even necessarily mean those people are ill-willed, you know, but that I think was probably the most toxic thing for me, to allow myself to, you know, I guess, base my self-worth off of what I do, not who I am. And I think the reason I say that though is because by doing that, now when I wake up every day, I'm pumped just to like be the best version of Dalton. I'm not necessarily thinking about how can I make the coolest video today, or what am I going to post today so that people will engage with me and make me feel good and think I'm cool or whatever that it, still want to be my friend. I just wake up every day and I am just super stoked to be myself and have another opportunity to be an even better version of myself that day.
Yeah,
so
I love that.
Yeah.
That you said it. We just kind of mentioned it, and then you flipped the question back to me, so I didn't get a chance. But I really like, if I can be of any help for the prioritizing you part of your day, making sure you're getting that active fitness, reading, like, said it once, say it again. You win the morning, you win the day. And that shit is a priority. It's not about what time you wake up. It's just about, what do you spend those first 1, 2 to 3 hours of your day doing? Like, screw the emails. To wake up and just dive into that email, to dive into that text message, it's like you're literally setting off firecrackers in your mind. Your mind starts flaring. It's like you're putting out all these fires, and this person wants an answer. It's like, slow down. Slow down, okay? Before I get to any of this bullshit, I got to focus on me. I got to cross off those things that matter to me. So if I value fitness, I need to get that done. If I value reading, I got to get 30 minutes done this morning. If I value, I need to talk to my mom today, I need to call her first. If I value eating healthy, well, I need to go to the grocery store and meal prep and feed myself the good stuff. And then when all that's done, I'll get to your email.
Yep.
I'll get to that text message. I'll get to editing that project that you need tomorrow. But if I can't even take care of myself, you're not going to get the best version of me in the work. So I would say that if when you leave today, that if that's an area that you subtly were like, I got to kind of work out, that's got to be the focus.
Yep.
And you're already crushing it on a lot of other things, and a lot of things are already work in progress. But I'm telling you right now, it is only going to enhance you. It's only going to give you more energy. It's only going to help you rewire that brain so that maybe right now you're like 85% of the time when I wake up, I feel good and energized. This is going to crank it up to 93 and then to 95. And I feel very fortunate because it's like I'm at the place now where like I'm not 100%. There's always room to grow. There's always these little things we're working on. But by me doing my morning routines, it flushes out the bullshit so that by the time I sat down to this podcast, if I had anything that was bothering me in the morning, I flushed it out on the run. I flushed it out in the meditation. I flushed it out in the journaling. At one point in that morning routine, that checklist, the bullshit that I had is gone.
I love it.
Sometimes it's in the run. Sometimes it's in the meditation.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's in the shower. But by the time I sit down for this podcast, it's game over.
It's gone.
I'm already in the moment. I do these pre-hype videos in the fucking mirror. Why do I do that? Because I'm some psychopath, potentially. But I do that because it's actually forcing myself to remind myself to be present, to appreciate, get hyped right now. Get hyped because in this moment in time, you're about to do a podcast. You're about to have an incredible conversation. It doesn't matter if it's you. It doesn't matter if Lewis Howes was coming in today. It doesn't matter if Barack Obama. It doesn't matter who's coming into that seat today. Bobby, the bearded man, you are blessed to have another opportunity to record a podcast. So what are you going to do? You're going to get yourself hyped up. So it's a long tangent because I get so fired up doing this stuff, but lean into like figuring out how do you incorporate that into your life to make sure, and maybe it's not the morning, maybe you're a night workout guy, but get that stuff back in and I guarantee you it's only going to help.
You're the second person to tell me that in like a week. And so I think that's I'm gonna cut this clip and then mail it to you. I'm gonna send it to you and you have to freaking replay Burn
it.
it on a DVD for me.
Seriously, it's a game changer. It's a game changer.
I mean, dude, that was to this day. I joke about the boot camp stuff, but seriously, did it suck waking up every morning? Yes.
Yeah.
But dude, that was a game changer for me. I remember the feeling I had when I went home. I just felt so good. There's also something to a routine. I think that's another thing I struggle with. But you're the I think you've got that down pat. So.
Oh man, I live by it. Routine, schedules, block time. It's key.
It's huge.
You know, you hold yourself accountable. You know where you're supposed to be and when for at least stuff like that.
Even the food, like that was another thing where like every, we had a certain day we'd go grocery shop. We had a certain day we would cook meal prep.
Yep.
And I knew what I was eating every day when I got back from the gym or wherever.
You're not thinking about what am I going to cook for dinner. You're saving yourself money and you're feeding your body like good foods.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with We Are Not Really Strangers?
Yeah.
Great. Actually, I remember you shared the post last night.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I bought the card game 2 months ago, and now before every guest comes, I pull a card for them.
I love it.
So your question is, what question are you trying to answer most in your life right now?
That's a great question. Okay, so I have a good answer for this. My roommate and I 2 nights ago had a very long conversation about purpose, and he said something really fascinating to me. Shout out Blaine. He said, he brought up this concept of purpose, and he said he thinks his take on it is that everyone was put on this earth to be a light, whatever that means, right? Just to be a light to other people and to just to the world. And he said, when people are asked what their purpose are, most times they don't know. Sometimes they do and they'll say something. But he said he thinks that that's everyone's purpose. What's different and where you really figure out like what your purpose is what platform you use to be a light to other people. And to me, I think I've found for a long time it was soccer, right? My whole life, I thought soccer was my purpose. That was the platform I used to develop relationships with people, spread positivity to them, whatever. In the last few years, it's been video. I've, gotten the chance to be on tour with people and cultivate good relationships with them, share, maybe, what's cool about those things is like almost every time I would develop a relationship with someone, like let's say on tour, I would always end up getting in a very deep conversation that I know they walked out of a better person because we had this conversation. So I think for me, a question I'm trying to figure out is what platform am I supposed to be using in the future? Because we talked about this a long time ago, but I feel like a huge shift is happening where obviously there's touring's not happening. Between that and then also how I feel personally about creating content, I'm shifting what that looks like for me and how my day-to-day goes. So I'm excited to figure out, when the day comes when I want to have a family and I want to have time to take my kid to soccer practice and not have to be editing until 2 a.m. What does that platform look like for me? What does that look like? So the good thing about that question is I think it's constantly changing. And I guess right now I'm trying to figure out what that next one looks like, because there's just an intuition feeling inside where I feel like this chapter is slowly kind of closing, and something else is right on the horizon.
Yeah. The beauty is that the true north, which like you kind of said, when you have a kid one day, you want to be able to bring them soccer practice, you don't want to be up to 2 a.m. That's great. You have some idea of like where you're going. That storytelling is something you're passionate about, and doing it at a high level is something you're passionate about. So now it's just about, weirdly, but honestly, just loving the process of trying to figure it out and being super patient and just going with the flow of like, when that transition is meant to happen, it's going to happen. I'm not going to stress myself out and say it needs to happen by next month. I'm going to be open to the flow of life, and like, when it's meant to be, it's meant to be. But I know where I'm going. I know that I want to do this at a high level, and I want to oversee a bunch of people, and it'll happen when it's supposed to happen. But to have that like idea, that true north is that's half the battle. Most people don't even have that vision. So that's great.
Yeah, man. It's I don't know. I'm curious. What do you feel like yours is? It's a deep question.
I know. When I pulled it for you, I go, he's going to have a world day with this
one.
This is actually really relevant. I'm I don't want to say too much, but I'm having more epiphanies about my, once again, self-awareness. I'm not saying this is bad for anybody or like you own your own decision making. You do what you want with your life. Once again, the question is, what question are you trying to answer most in your life right now? Do I like the person that I am better when I consume alcohol, zero alcohol?
Interesting.
Because I do like the person that I am better. So the real question is, why do you do it then?
That's fascinating.
Why are you still doing it? The 75 days of no booze stretch opened my eyes to like, holy shit, like I have never gone this long without not touching booze since I was not touching booze as a kid. Everything in my life grew. Podcasting, did a lot of content, met a lot of great people, started getting into the dating game of LA. Everything got better. More energy, more productivity, saving myself money, not spending on booze. 7 days of the week feeling great instead of 6 with 1 being hungover. So why do it? To fit in? To take an edge off? Well, if you're trying to take an edge off, what's the problem? What do you dig? What are you afraid to assess? What are you trying to take the edge off of? There's something deeper than just the booze. So, not to get into it because I don't want to spend a whole podcast talking about it, but I'm really, really like thinking long term and like alcohol has been an issue, and I've talked about it on podcasts. Alcohol is an issue in my family. I've had family that I've lost because of it. I've lost jobs. Whole rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So me, once again, I know people that can booze and have a great time and live their life and crush it. Great. Please do it. Once again, me, self-aware. I like who I am when it's not in my system. So why do I do it? So that's a question I'm trying to figure out.
It's a great question to ask yourself.
No. So now I'm making some decision making in my mind right now, and I think I might follow through, and it will be very beneficial for my longevity of my fucking life. So yeah, there's more to come on that, but that's where I would be.
That's interesting.
Before we wrap up, I know you posted something on your Instagram last night about questions. If anybody had any questions for you, is there anything, whether related to that or any topic that you wanted to cover today? I don't know if there's anybody that submitted something that you're like, oh, that's a good question, or something that is there. I guess you can pull up the Instagram and check and see if there's anything. Or is there anything that you thought about before this podcast today that you wanted to talk about and we didn't? Because I feel like we really scratched a lot. We're coming up at an hour and 50 minutes on the pod.
Yep.
Anything that you want to cover? Any questions or anything like that?
So let me check here just to make sure. So, I think we covered a lot of the questions I had gotten. Like this one was, what was your biggest lesson learned this year? And how do you personally deal with anxiety and depression that life can bring? I think we covered that.
Definitely covered that.
Honestly, man, I think we covered a lot of it. My intention today was to definitely touch on just the human side of everything.
Yeah.
Not necessarily focus too much on content and all of that. So
we barely, if you think about it, that's what been the beauty of this new show is like, I'm bringing all these different like people, founders and whatnot. And yeah, if I'm meeting them for the first time, we'll dive into a lot of like the business stuff. But at the core of it, a lot of this is it's people podcast. Mm-hmm. It's not. It is like this is what I do. This is what I do for a career. But it's more of the underlying of what makes people tick and their passion. So it's interesting. But yeah, we didn't really talk about like, well, why'd you get
right?
It's interesting.
I know. I think we covered a lot of what I wanted to talk about. Yeah, I'm glad we talked about relationships and stuff too. I think it's also interesting because I think, to me, at least from the outside looking in, it looks like people are, the pandemic's been weird. I feel like people are more open to the idea of dating, I think, because no one's that busy right now. Even if you are busy, you're not on a plane going places all the time for work or what, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's an interesting space. I've been fascinated, like observing. Like I had two of my close friends get married in quarantine. Actually.
Crazy.
Yeah. So I'm glad we touched on that. But no, honestly, I'm excited for this one to go out. I think it's good, and I think I hope that it brings a lot of value to people. And like I said, I just wanted to touch on like depression, anxiety, because it's such a tricky thing. So.
Yeah, it's hard to communicate, especially if somebody like yourself has been going through or has gone through a troubling time like that. And so like you don't know how to share what you've been through. And I know I had, when you were kind of in the middle of it, looking back, it probably wasn't the right time, but I had said to you like, yo, why don't you just create a video and like talk about it and like put it out there. And it was a great realization of like, sometimes you have to get through something in order to really talk and look and like talk about what you learned from it. So it wasn't the right time. And it's also hard to like, you can like put up something on Instagram and like put a caption and, yes, but it's just similar like with a text, like you can't hear the emotion in somebody. So you don't really know how somebody feels or like, what's really going through their mind as they're writing something. But to hear it in this type of a context or platform with podcasting, it's very real. It's very authentic. You can hear it in somebody's voice. So I think this is the platform where you can really open up. And, I had hit you up about doing this podcast months ago, right? When you were in the middle of kind of going through this stuff. And I feel like timing, once again, it just goes to prove you that when something isn't meant to be in the moment, it'll make sense in the future. And I feel like today this podcast couldn't have gone better.
No,
I couldn't have this could not have gone any better than it has.
Man. And I think I told you, but when you had texted me and you said, just create a video talking about, because where it came up was you saw the video that I made about dropping out 3 or 4 years ago. And you said you should do a follow-up and also talk about everything that's happened in between and what's going on. I promise you, I sat down and tried to record that. I even bought a microphone for it. I think I know for sure 3 times, I think 4. Spent 2 hours in front of the camera. Every time ended I just ended up turning the camera off and deleting the footage. And
too much of a force.
It was what I think the issue is that the story was incomplete at that time because I hadn't seen the other side of it.
Yeah.
So I only had this pessimistic perspective of what was going on. I needed to kind of get through it to complete the story and have, a beginning, middle, and end to it, where I have a full scope of kind of how I truly feel about that situation and what happened. So this was, like you said, perfect timing. Pumped.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, I always allow the guests to challenge the listeners to do something. So if they made it this far in the podcast, what's a challenge that you would pose to the listeners, like that they could do that would benefit their lives in any way? What's one challenge, whether it's read a book, a podcast, or to do anything, just one challenge for the listener after they listen to today's podcast?
This is tough. It's sort of a challenge. It's also a piece of advice that I picked up on the Whim Hoff trip from Jesse Itzler, part owner of the Atlanta Hawks. Very successful person. And he said something he does, I don't know if it's every single day or once. I think it's every single day though. He just texts 3 people that are random in his phone that he never talks to. And, I think he's got a format. Like he maybe lists 3 things that he's thankful for about that person or something like that. But basically just reaches out to 3 people a day. It takes him a minute to send these 3 texts and lets them know that he appreciates them, hopes they're doing well. And here's a list of these 3 things that I think are great about you. And I've, to an extent, not religiously, I haven't done it every single day, but I've been trying to do that more often. And what I've found is that there's one specific friendship. I'll make it quick, but I did do that. And it turns out that this girl that I hadn't talked to in a while, she was a friend from high school. She almost broke down whenever I sent her that because she needed to hear that so bad. And that was all she needed. Just a little text, that someone that was completely random, had no, intention other than to just reach out, said something nice to her. And so I think that's a bit of a challenge, but also something that is easily incorporated into your life every single day. And it definitely won't hurt you to do that. So I've found value in it. I know other people have, and I think it's a good practice.
It's being of service. You're providing
Yeah.
service to other people, making them feel good, showing that you love, appreciate them for many of reasons. But
And you never know what can come out of those either, is the thing.
yeah, that's why I'm a big believer of like show support to people. I'm always trying to like in any way that I can without being a force or, you know, causing too much of a ruckus, but like just showing love to people. Because a lot of times they might think like, oh, here we go. You know, they said like, great job on your recent thing. And they're like, oh, he's probably going to ask me for a favor. And then there's just no follow-up.
Yeah.
I just like love the response back on the emotion. They're probably like, wait, you didn't ask for a favor? Like, so I'm a big believer. Just show love. Just give, you know, show people there's enough room for everybody to win, even if it's somebody that's competing in your space or whatever. Just like something great about just showing appreciation of other people. And like you said, you didn't know it was going to impact that girl and she needed to hear it the most, but it's pretty awesome to hear that.
Dude, thanks for having me, man.
Dude,
this was fun.
Absolute pleasure. What's your IG handle?
Dalton Misner.
Yep. Is it full Dalton Misner?
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed today's podcast, all that I ask really, but I'm including we as in Dalton, you need to screenshot this episode right now, post it to your IG story, tag Dalton at Dalton Misner, Misner, right? DaltonMisner. I wasn't a great speller growing up, so I'm doing that for all my non-spellers, really for myself. And then you got to tag me, which clearly I don't know how to spell, at Bob, B-O, 3 B's, 4 A's, and a Y. Extremely aggressive, I know. But share this podcast out on your IG story, tag us, and let us know what you learned. It helps grow this podcast organically, and I really, really appreciate it. Dalton, I love you, and so happy we got a chance to connect and talk on this podcast. I feel like I've known you my entire life, and just so excited for kind of where we're going, and we're just cranking up the heat, baby.
Man, it's so cool to have these check-ins every now and then. Always appreciate you, man. It was great.
Hell yeah. Dalton Misner, baby. Thanks for coming in. Talk to you guys and gals soon enough. It's your favorite bearded man, Bobby.